the songs are at once literal and incredibly abstract, as are his monologues. And I really like
I could watch hours of him telling these weird intellectual stories that all start extremely mundane and then like have like very absurd things happening.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Grande Bouffe,
The Big Feast.
With myself, Cole Smithey, and my co-host, Mike Lacy. Good evening, Mike.
Hello. Ahoy hoy is what I was going to say, and then I forgot, and then I just went back and I redid it.
Hoy hoy. I like hoy hoy.
Oh, ahoy hoy.
Oh, ahoy hoy.
Yeah, when Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, he thought that it wouldn't be appropriate to just say hello. So he decided that you had to say ahoy hoy.
So he didn't say yip, 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 yip.
He also said that.
Oh, okay. So did Robyn Hitchcock. What a coincidence.
I was going to say Mr. Burns says ahoy hoy when he answers the phone in The Simpsons. Ahoy hoy.
I thought you might say that Mr. Byrne, as in David Byrne.
What's David
of
Byrne?
The Talking Heads.
Oh, boy.
We obviously, everybody knows, maybe they don't know by now, that we are discussing Jonathan Demme's wonderful career. Sadly, Mr. Demme passed away about a week ago, a little over a week ago.
Yeah, about a week since recording this. And I've seen some retrospectives and people on other podcasts discussing some of his better-known movies. I think this is a little bit of a B-side.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. Not known a lot about Robyn Hitchcock, TBH.
Well, this is a great introduction to Robyn Hitchcock, who is a singer-songwriter that I have loved for a very long time, for decades, because he's been playing music for decades. And I have a tradition whenever my wife and I go to California for our annual Christmas vacation, no matter what airport we land in, on the drive to the hotel, we always listen to Robyn Hitchcock. So
awesome.
Yeah, fun stuff.
Name off the good starter album for Robyn Hitchcock.
Well, okay, so
I guess I fucked up already.
Yeah, that's a tricky question. He was with a band called the Soft Boys in the 70s, and then he had a new band, Robyn Hitchcock and the Egyptians, and then he went kind of solo, and now he does music. He records with former members of REM.
So he's still around.
So yeah, and I would say you can't miss. Start anywhere. Be as random as you possibly can. I think in the realm of Robyn Hitchcock, I think
speaking of
that would be the right approach. Is just to.
That's how I feel about David Byrne, who I probably know better as a solo artist than as the Into Talking Heads, and just jump around, and it's all in the same vein and totally different.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that this. I'm really glad that you agreed to do Storefront Hitchcock, because there's so many great access points for Jonathan Demme's career, probably most famous for Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, definitely.
But Married to the Mob is a lot of people's favorite movie of all time, and certainly favorite Jonathan Demme movie. But he was a big music fan. He was crazy about the Feelies. If you don't know who the Feelies are, they're a really fun band. And he thought that the Feelies were the best rock and roll band in the world back in the day. So he was also famous for making the Talking Heads music performance Stop Making Sense. And this came out not too long thereafter, and he's made, I think, 3 films about Neil Young. So music is a big entry point for him personally, for Jonathan Demme personally. This is obviously a very personal film. It's a very minimalist music performance movie. It was filmed on 14th Street between 5th and 6th. I think it says, you can read the address across the street. It says 20 West 14th.
Wait.
So it's right across the street from the City MD.
Oh my God. I'm there all the time. It looks super familiar.
Yeah, the building that they're in is now a guitar center.
It's the Guitar Center.
It's the Guitar Center. It's that little 4 or 5 story building.
It's really gone downhill.
Yeah, and sadly, it's gone downhill since it was an empty storefront.
Yeah, I'm sure they talk about how, like, there's a Robyn Hitchcock film the concert.
I'm sure they do.
One time, he's using this guitar right over here. You see remember his pedals he's using in that? Some pretty good German pedals, man.
So Jonathan Demme.
Fucking hate guitar people. I'm sorry.
I know. No, believe me, I do too. Famously got his start with Roger Corman. So, of course, Roger Corman, the B-movie maestro of making films under budget and under schedule.
Not the first time the Corman school has come up on this show. I'm trying to think of what other directors.
Coppola,
that we've covered, which includes Coppola. Have we done a Scorsese movie?
That's a good question. Maybe we have not done a Scorsese movie. Ouch.
I don't think we have, but he came up through there.
Yep.
I believe. Did Spielberg make one for him? I think he might have.
It's possible. I
think he made one about a car that I think Ron Howard was in a movie about a car that was killing people.
Oh, that's right. The big trucker. You're right.
Yeah,
that's right. I think, and I'm looking at Crazy Mama. For some reason, Crazy Mama, directed by Jonathan Demme, and I think that Scorsese might have had some hand in the production of that film, but that movie was made back in 1975. So he had a very long and illustrious career. I see on IMDb that he has 61 directorial credits, which includes a lot of television stuff. But just to give you a brief overview, he did Caged Heat in 74, which is a Corman movie, and then Crazy Mama, also Roger Corman. Fighting Mad sounds like Roger Corman, and he directed an episode of Columbo on television. So
I gotta check that out.
That's pretty.
I wonder.
Pretty cool.
And some of those Columbos
it's Murder Under Glass, 1978. The Murder Under Glass episode.
Some of those Columbos were. It was kind of a movie. It's like, right? Like they were long. They would have.
They were. It was a weekly show, and they would interchange different series. There was Banachek with George Peppard.
Was Kojak one of them?
No, Kojak was not one of them. Kojak was its own series.
Yeah, but so Banachek and then Columbo and then maybe
there was another one. McLeod, I think, was another one of those.
That's an interesting model because you could pull in bigger directors because it wasn't like a 8-day turnaround.
Well, that's the thing is he wasn't a big director back then. He was just a workaday director, but he did do a UB40 and Chrissy Hind music video. So he was in on the video scene from very early, and Stop Making Sense came along. When did that come along? That was 1984, maybe. So that brings us to Storefront Hitchcock, which is so audacious in its minimalism. I just love the conceit of I'm going to rent out a storefront on 14th Street. We're going to stick some little cones, street cones, 3 little street cones around
for no real reason.
Well, you know what? Because I've seen this a few times. I originally saw this movie. It premiered at the 1998 San Francisco Film Festival, and I had been in New York for 9 months or whatever, and had to go back and clean up my affairs in San Francisco. And I went and saw it and met Robyn there and really loved it. But
you had to clean up your affairs?
I had many affairs to clean up.
Don't go as much as you want.
I had a house. I lived out in the Sunset at 41st and Moraga.
Oh.
And so I had my roommate there who was supposed to be taking care of the house and, taking on the responsibility of getting other roommates to pay the rent because it was in my name. And he fell down on the job pretty miserably. So when I got back, there was a sheriff's notice sticker across the house, and I had to go. I still had a lot of stuff in there, and so Gregory, my old roommate, he freaked out and ditched everything.
Nice.
So
that's punk rock.
Yeah. So his room was just a disaster area. It looked like a bomb had gone off in there. There was change everywhere, just change all over the floor.
Money change?
Money change. Yeah.
I thought you said chains, and I was like, I like this guy.
Yeah, there was chains. And so I don't know how, there was something to do with where I couldn't go through the front door. I could only enter through the garage. I guess I still had my garage key or something, but for some reason I couldn't lock the garage. So I had to leave the garage unlocked and come and go through the garage, park my car a block away. And yeah, it was an interesting time. And then I started dating this girl from Latvia, and so we were.
I think she's come up on this show before.
We were sleeping in the empty house. It was fun. There was something kind of romantic.
This reminds
and cool
me of
about
a scene from Tess. Their house is like foreclosed upon, and they break in, and an old lady sees them in bed together.
That's right. Yeah, it had that kind of it was a little illegal. If I'd been caught there, it wouldn't have been. But also, I was in touch with the landlord because he knew that I had to clean up the house. I had to get all the stuff out of there. It was there was work to be done.
Sober decisions. We've neglected talking about our beer yet. What do we got here, Cole?
Ooh, well, I had surgery on my foot last week, so I've really been kind of stuck in the house. So I couldn't go out and get any beer. But fortunately, I still have some of this fantastic Firestone Walker FORTEM, it says Leo versus Ursus. And this is an Imperial IPA.
Which I believe my having never taken Latin tells me, and also looking at the can, means lion versus bear.
Right. And Firestone and Walker are the owners, and one of them represents the lion, one of them represents the bear.
Cool.
And so it has that really cool logo on the can. One of my favorite kind of beers, but we bought a bunch of it. We took a little vacation to the Poconos, which is in Pennsylvania, if you don't know where the Poconos is, and took along a lot of this beer. And fortunately for me, the people that we were hanging out with did not like Imperial IPAs, so I got to bring it all home.
That's a great thing. When you go to a party and you bring a bunch of beer and no one likes it, and you're like, I guess I just have to take all this. Like, I brought it technically to this party, but I guess I get to drink it all.
Well, yeah, you bring something like that because you like it, but then when no one else likes it, you're just stuck with what you like.
Find the one beer you like and no one else does.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that really
helps in life,
phenomena that I don't understand, is the thing where people make it a point of drinking shitty beer.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I drink Schlitz, or I drink whatever, put in your favorite piss beer. But they do that around people who are beer people, and so it's weird. Some people they want to really make it clear that they don't give a fuck about craft beer. And
what's interesting is that it's also like crappy beer is usually much lower alcohol content. Much lower. So it's not like you're like, I don't care, I'm just trying to get fucked up. It's like, I'm just trying to drink this shitty water for a while. You'd have more of an impact if you're like,
all right, well, let's taste the...
Just a glass of milk for me.
Let's taste the FORTEM. It's a favorite around the Blind Tiger, I know.
I like it. Explain to me like what the Imperial IPA means, because I think that's the sort of the most like pronounced aspect of it. You remember this?
Yeah, there's the difference between the double IPA and the Imperial IPA, and I have to say I don't.
This was explained to us.
I know it's been explained. I don't remember.
By David on the League of Their Own episode. But
right.
the thing is that coincidentally, I got extremely drunk during that conversation.
Yes, we both did. But that's not going to happen this time because we're splitting a 16-ounce can. So we've only roughly each got about 8 ounces of this beer. Not to say that it won't put a hamper on our speech by the end of the podcast. But
it's sweet and smooth, but not too sweet or too smooth. But there's kind of a creaminess to it.
It is, yeah. It's velvety.
Uh-huh.
And it's got a little sting. And you can definitely tell when you take a sip that alcohol is going to work.
Right, but it doesn't have... I think the thing is about the hops, right? I think that's where the Imperial thing came in, is that, like, it is high alcohol content, but it doesn't have that, like, biting hop, that bitterness to it at all.
Right.
It's very smooth.
That's true. Yeah, it's very hoppy, but it's not... It's smooth. It's not bitter. So... that brings us to Robyn Hitchcock and Storefront Hitchcock. So it's minimalist. It's kind of shocking when you get to the end of the movie and you see how many people worked on this film.
Right.
It's Jonathan Demme's production company, Clinica Estetica, and just for one other little side note, Cole story, I was looking for work when I got here in '97, and one of the jobs that I went on an interview for was at Clinica Estetica as a script reader. And
cool.
Yeah, and they handed me a script for this movie Go, which had not yet been made yet, and I tore it to shreds. I just went at it.
Was that movie made?
It was made.
Did Jonathan Demme make it?
Yes. And so
sounds like they made the right choice, Cole.
I know. Everyone loves this movie. I hate the movie.
I wonder why.
Well, yeah, I didn't get the job, but I worked my butt off on the cover. You know, it's called a coverage when you read it. You read a script and you have to write essentially a report about what's good, what's not, and give it a pass or fail. Great.
There's always like tons of great Hollywood stories about things like this where like, you know, it's your first day on the job and someone hands you a script and the little intern is like, I think the script is good. And they're like, it's the first fucking script you get. It's not fucking good. And it's like, I think it's a good script. And it's like, it's not going to be a good movie. And then it turns out that it's like, Schindler's List.
Yeah, I felt like I'd been so set up for the thing because it was obvious that they were already in production on this script.
It was a test. It was a straight up test.
It was a straight up test. Yeah.
Yeah, and you couldn't go on his IMDb back then and look at his in production.
No,
thing.
I failed with flying colors. So about the pylons, back to the 3 pylons. What I like, because it's interesting. Why are there these street pylons? Is it because
of the number of people on stage?
No, I think it's because it brings the sense of the street into the store, into the area that you're seeing, because you're seeing people walking by on the sidewalk behind you, and they do some really inventive things with screens and filters and lighting. Very simple lighting with candles.
And there are some costume changes.
There's one costume change. I have to say that's one complaint that I have is I wish there were a few more costume changes because that one shirt gets a little annoying after a while.
It is a good experiment in what people's tolerance is for being in one location. And this is riding an interesting line between just being a straight up like filming and for performance.
Yeah.
Which, like, there's tons of movies like that. Like, you can buy a million DVDs of, like, Rolling Stone concerts, but you wouldn't call it a concert film.
Yeah.
You know? And so you have to have something other. There's to be a voice in the editing and in the cinematography for it to be, like, a concert film. And this is certainly a film. And I think it's aided by Robyn Hitchcock's. Robyn Hitchcock's
storytelling,
which breaks it up very nicely and makes it into segments in a way that just if you have song after song after song, you don't get.
And that's typical of Robyn's style and his performance style, and so. You could tell it's a very personal movie that Demme made because he really loves Robyn Hitchcock and wanted to share him with the world in an inventive way.
So there's the questions. One, why do we see the the people on the street behind him, and it's not like two-way glass. Like people stop and they put their hands up to it and trying to see what's going on. Why is all this? Maybe they recognize Robyn Hitchcock,
or maybe like, well, I'm sure they can hear the music.
They can hear the music, like what, like who was performing in there. So that's question 1. And related question 2: why do we never see the audience? Because there sounds like there's like more than a crew there. There's an audience. There's an audience.
It was filmed, as far as I know, over a period of 4 days, and audience members ostensibly were invited. And so I think the audience is changing, and I think it would distract. I appreciate the fact that there's no audience. It's shown, you can hear the audience, for their participation, but I really like that the film is very focused on Robyn and the music and the songs.
It gives it a proscenium in a sense is that like he's on a stage and like we're in the audience with the other people, and not seeing the audience is kind of akin to like being in an audience. Right. Like a concert movie, you usually have a big crane like flying over the crowd. Even in like a talk show, you see the audience all the time, and you're kind of like aware of like the set, like that this is like a set, and like the people who are literally there. There's a bit of it that's like kind of like how a laugh track works,
right?
Where you're aware that there's an audience that's there. These people aren't like,
but it's also
bullshit like
it's
that,
also a time. It's also a time code for New York City, because you see the stores across the street, you see the buses and the cars going behind
the
him.
Inside is invisible to us, but he's making us aware that there's like he could have performed this with no one there,
right?
Or taken it out the applause and stuff, so we don't see them, but we do see exactly it's very time checked where like people are dressed in it was filmed later than I thought it was. Like y'all dressed pretty lame in 1997. Like I thought this was like 87, honestly.
I know it feels like 87.
It does. The film stock is maybe it's like 16. I'd like to know what it was filmed on. And he does he shows the cartridge changes a lot. Yeah. Like when the film runs out, a lot of times you'll see it like bleed to red, and you could cut to another angle to like hide that.
Yeah, and then he'll let the screen go to that code green color before it shifts into the next song. It creates a nice sense of time passing, because you can tell that this was not filmed in one time period. You know, sometimes it feels like it's maybe 11 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes it feels like it's 5 in the afternoon. Sometimes it feels like it's 11 o'clock at night.
And all these things are, less, I think, Demme grappling with continuity, and more how do you make someone performing 15 songs engaging for this amount of time? Because it's a real challenge, As someone who's filmed a lot of concerts, it's like you don't want to watch the same few angles all the time.
It's 14 songs.
Is it 14?
Yeah, it's 14.
How do you make this, diverse besides just the song changing? And then without doing too much, without changing locations, how do you have the different songs filmed and edited in a different way that's like honest to them and feels intentional?
Well, I liked what you said before about Robyn's. If you're not familiar with Robyn Hitchcock, he comes from the Syd Barrett school of songwriting, where it's a very psychedelic style of rock and roll. There's a lot of surrealism, and the songs are at once literal and incredibly abstract, as are his monologues. And I really like I
could watch hours of him telling these weird intellectual stories that all start extremely mundane, and then like have like very absurd things happening, and he has like there's deadpanning this.
Yeah, and he goes on at length. He sets up the songs in a way that allows you to comprehend many more layers of meaning than anyone else could. It's a very personal thing. When he talks about, if you're watching this, 50 years from now, I lived in a time when there was a two-party system. And so even the political statements that he's making, which are very offhand and backhand and sideways,
and they're very cynical. They're very sort of.
They're very cynical.
I don't want to give him anything too specific, but I mean, it feels like of this time, the cynicism and this, but it's very 90s in that it's the absurdity of it seems like sort of the necessary tool, the absurdity through everything of almost like, to not go to David Byrne, he's not making sense,
Right.
Where now, I gotta be honest, someone who went off like that and was saying such completely absurd things while making really coherent political commentary, maybe it's exactly what we need, but I'd kind of be like, no, dude, like fucking, like, what do you think we should do about it? You know, we're in more dire times, and we like don't have as much time for the whimsy that he.
Yeah, but see, I think that Robyn gets a deeper meanings in the songs. I was quoting the Yip song, which a lot of people find that song really annoying, and I can see why. But it's about his father dying, and there's Demme gives a little shout out to Robyn's dad and puts the years, Raymond Hitchcock, and gives the years that that he lived. And so, I think like the Yip song is a good example. I'll see if I can pull it up here just so we could hear a pinch of it. Because he lands on this word, yip. It's such a weird word anyway. And he uses it to convey all of these meanings for grappling with his father's death, for his father grappling with death, for his mother grappling with death. So it has this antagonistic quality, not unlike the beeping of some hospital machine that just keeps doing the thing that it does, and it's annoying and it's in your face, but at the same time it's a confirmation of life. So there's a lot of meaning in his songs that you have to find them for yourself.
Well, it's interesting because he tees you up. He does the kind of regular singer-songwriter thing where you're expecting to be like, yeah, this song is, I took a little creative liberties, but I dated a girl named Jessica who really took me a lot of crazy places, and I imagine, what if Jessica was a snowflake, and that the snowflake fell in the desert, and I was that desert. So this little one's called Snowflake in the Desert. He starts like teeing you up with the songs, and then he says like his explanation is more abstract and bizarre than the song actually is, which is an extremely like out there and creative allegory. So he kind of ensnares you into this like lovely kind of like almost like Lewis Carroll-y world of very familiar nonsense.
Yeah, he's a great narrator. He very lovingly tells these stories that he has crafted with these just incredible adjectives and bizarre forays in and out of practical reality. Anyway, I just want to play a little pinch. We'll listen to a little bit of Robyn so you can hear what we're talking about. Hopefully you guys will watch the movie. So, but here's something for you.
This old man, he was Flash. They wheeled him in upon a trolley. Virulin, draw a window on his skin now. Virulin, this old man, he was next, blindfolded to face the volley. Virulin, love will come of all our sins. Paint that on my tail fin now.
So there you go. There's a little clip from it, and it's clear from this song that his dad fought in the war. Excuse me. I just noticed that his dad was born in 22 and died in 92. So anyway, there's a lot to be enjoyed if you're the kind of person who likes that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'd say for having really never been familiar with Robyn Hitchcock, this is a really easy movie to watch and to get super into. And I think that's credit split pretty evenly between Hitchcock and Demme. I've been saying this whole time. Like, I see making a compelling concert film as a really difficult thing, because I mean, you can watch a great musician perform any song filmed on an iPhone if you got good audio, but to make you sit for an hour and 10 or an hour and a half or even longer, you really need to bring some chops and to be thinking really like on the same wavelength as this musician, which for people this kind of eccentric and fascinating is like tough to do. And so Demme really like hits it out of the park with this.
And you also appreciate what an incredible musician Hitchcock is. I mean, he's no slouch on the guitar, and he's no slouch as a singer. He's really, I mean, by this point, he was a very seasoned musician, and it comes through. It's just so much fun. He has Demi Bonet. If you don't know who Demi Bonet is, she's a very fine violinist, and there's a song called "The Filthy Bird," and she does a great job of creating bird sounds, like seagulls on her violin. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, the talent brought out there is just fucking fantastic. I was gonna bring her up.
Yeah, so he brings out a couple of other musicians for just one or two songs, and the rest of it is just Robyn. But Storefront Hitchcock is a great entryway into Jonathan Demme, I think, because he was such a loving, caring individual towards all artists, and it really comes through in this movie. I read some interview with Jodie Foster, and she was just talking about what a generous person he was, and you really get that sense here, I think, more than necessarily watching one of his comedies or feature films.
I mean, Silence of the Lambs is obviously the one that I think of the most, and I've seen like countless times.
Oh, I know, I could watch it right now,
and like it's cool to watch in this context because it couldn't be more different, but there is a perspective and like a sensitivity that is contiguous from this movie to that one, and like really like watch Silence of the Lambs like not as a horror film, which it's not really, but like watch it for its like filmmaking and the way that
it's more of a psychological thriller.
Yeah, and in the way that it literally frames with the cameras, people in their faces and those extreme close-ups, and it's like a fucking fascinatingly made movie. And all you have to do is like look at the sequels to it and realize how great Jonathan Demme is and how he pulled off a great film in what should be kind of like a popcorn slasher with that one.
Well, he was such a master of all styles. He would make the Hollywood blockbuster like Philadelphia, his remake of The Manchurian Candidate, like all remakes.
We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that.
But then you watch a movie like Rachel Getting Married, which, by the way, Robyn Hitchcock is the musician at the wedding.
Oh, really?
In Rachel Getting Married. Have you seen that movie?
No.
I think it's the best way Anne Hathaway's ever done. So Demme, this person who could go from making a minimalist musical performance movie like this to something like Stop Making Sense, which is a big stage performance film with the talking heads, to doing these Hollywood blockbusters like Silence of the Lambs.
Stop Making Sense also feels, to compare it, it's a lot more, if I remember right, like static, and you don't feel the camera quite as like dynamic in this, and that makes a lot of sense for the talking heads who have this sort of like faux rigidity to them, this sort of like almost like mocking like this like kind of Soviet style of like regimentedness. And so he's really good at embracing what the people he was working with give to him. And Jonathan Demme, you got to be like into movies to know about Jonathan Demme, but you probably like a Jonathan Demme movie. And like a Soderbergh, he is a chameleon of sorts and disappears into the background.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that is the sign of a real master. Some of his more recent films that you may not have seen, he did A Master Builder in 2014, and then most recently he did Ricky and the Flash with Meryl Streep, which I did not see, but now I'm going to hunt it down and watch it.
I had no idea that was a Jonathan Demme movie.
Yeah, I know. And
it might not be the worst movie ever, which was my impression from the trailer.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. He also did a documentary about Justin Timberlake Justin Timberlake and the Tennessee Kids in 2016.
Okay, I legit want to see that.
I know, which now I really want to see that too. So there's a lot of stuff.
Have you seen the Katy Perry documentary?
No. Is it good?
It's kind of great.
Really?
There's one scene.
I'm not surprised. Who directed it? You know?
Someone who's friends with Seth Green. I don't know.
Okay, all right.
Like, that's the most I know.
Okay.
But like, there's one scene where she's basically is told she's going to be getting divorced, and she has to
from Sacha Baron Cohen.
No. I mean, I understand.
Oh no, sorry, Russell Brand.
Yeah,
what am I saying?
I understand.
Sorry,
yeah.
Sasha.
Yeah. Similar, very different.
Very different.
She's, she realizes she's gonna be, she's gone from being like a sort of everyone's favorite Christian pop star to a divorcee. And I mean, she's a pop star. It's not Christian, but I understand. Don't yell at me. But anyway, she's weeping naturally. And everyone on her crew is like, look, yes, there are literally 80,000 people waiting for you to sing, but people have canceled on larger crowds.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Like, take your time. Like, you need to...
Did she cancel?
And she just goes like, I can't do it. No, I'm not canceling. No, I'm not doing it. But she's like bawling. Her makeup's a wreck. She's like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. They fix her makeup, and she's still crying. She's just crying. And then she gets on, like, the elevator that's going to, like, shoot her onto the stage. Yeah. And she's still crying, and the camera's on her, and you're like, she's got to get her shit together.
And then
like,
she does.
And in the last second, she just puts on this smile.
Yeah, well, that's the first rule of being an entertainer. The show must go on.
And it's not like, oh, she's a phony bitch that can hide it. It's like, no, she's fucking strong and is doing this for other people.
Yeah, she's a real entertainer. Well, I don't want to let it go. I felt a little bit remiss about not naming any Robyn Hitchcock albums to start with, because I think they're all great. And so in that regard, I will name off a few. I Often Dream of Trains, 1984. Incredible record. Black Snake Diamond Roll is great. And the more recent stuff, Moss Elixir is also really good. The more recent stuff that he's done with the Tarantula 5, I can't remember the name of the most recent one. I from 1990 is also really great. I really like I a lot. It has
EYE.
EYE. It has the song Jules for Sophia. That's great. So thank you all very much for listening. Please visit colesmithy.com, and you can email us if you'd like with any suggestions or questions or anything that you would like to share, any ideas that you want to share with us.
Yeah.
You can find that through my website.
Okay. I don't know our email.
And of course,
colesmithy.com.
Yeah, and then of course, go to iTunes and write us a review of something, because no one ever reviews anything.
Come on, guys. We know you got opinions.
Yeah.
We know you, told Grubhub what you thought of that weird Chinese food that you got. And you probably made it a little higher because you didn't realize that you didn't tip the guy because you thought the app art... I'm not talking about myself. But in any case, send us a review.
Yeah, do that. And remember to turn your cell phones off when you're walking, driving, riding a bicycle, or watching a movie.